What is going on, my friends? Hank here from SpruesNBrews Scale Modeling, and today I am answering your questions. So last week I posted a video asking you guys to send me your Q&A topics about scale modeling, about World War II history, about me, about shooting stuff for YouTube, you name it. And you guys certainly answered the call. I got a ton of responses here on YouTube and over on the Instagram account. And today we're going to hash through a bunch of them. I don't think we'll get to everything, but I'm going to cover a bunch. And if you don't see yours today, we'll have to make a second video here to cover the rest of them. So should be pretty fun. We're doing this all off script, just shooting from the hip. And I think it's going to be a blast. So grab yourself a beverage, get cozy. Let's get into it. All right, our first question here today comes from Scale History. What got you started in scale modeling? I think my story is probably pretty similar to most folks. I started when I was a kid. You know, everybody loves playing with plastic Army Men and G.I. Joes and all that jazz. And my parents got me a model kit, and it kind of went from there. And then, you know, life gets in the way. You go to school, go to college, all that jazz, start working. And I stopped doing it for a few decades. And then my girlfriend at the time, now wife, in 2017, she was teaching English in Central America. And I was looking for some stuff to do. So I went to a local hobby shop and I picked up a Revell Monogram Panzer IV. I'd been playing a lot of World of Tanks at the time, and I said, you know, what the hell? Let's grab a model kit and give it a go, like in the good old days. And the rest is history, as they say. All right, next question. Brooke Troutman asks, what was the first kit you ever made, and what is your current favorite kit you've ever made? Very good question. My first kit that I ever made, like I mentioned, was not that Revell Panzer IV. It was actually a 1/48 scale B-17F Memphis Belle kit, I think from Revell. Back when I was a little dude. I actually have a picture of it. Here it is right here. There's a little young man, SpruesNBrews, going to town on this 1/48 scale beast of a kit. I think suffice to say I did not build this on my own. I had quite a bit of help from my old man, but I loved this thing. It got a lot of action back in the day. Played with it quite a bit. I don't think it even had any paint on it, but it did have some decals, which is pretty funny in itself. And I'm fortunate enough to still have this kit in a little worse shape than it was when it started, but I do have it in a box in the basement, which is great. So yeah, first kit ever was a 1/48 scale B-17. Holds a special place in my heart. It wasn't that one, but I do like making them. And current favorite kit. Well, the Tamiya 1/48 scale BF-109 G6 kit is always going to be one of my favorites. I think I've built that more than any other kit. I've made 4 of those. But, you know, I like the Oscar Sherman kits. Those are always a blast. My Firefly is one of my faves. The M4A3 E2 Jumbo as well. But I think favorite kit, I probably have to go with that Tamiya 109. All right, this is a good question. How do you keep yourself motivated during builds? You know, one thing about scale modeling is it's not a sprint of a hobby. This takes a while, as you guys all know. And I think the best way to achieve the perfect finish, or a finish that you're really going to be proud of, is to go slow. So it can be tough sometimes to keep yourself motivated during builds. And I think the trick for me is, if I'm working at the bench for a long session, or maybe I'm thinking about doing some work, if you're not feeling it at the time, that's a really good sign to step away and go do something else. Because the last thing you want to do is force yourself to work on a model kit. So the nice thing about this is that if you're working on a kit, say it's a tank, and you know you just don't want to paint it today, put it in a case so it's not going to get dusty, or you know, just cover it up with something and walk away. Come back to it later. It's not going anywhere, and it's not going to get hurt just sitting on the shelf. So that's kind of my trick. If you don't have the mojo, do something else, and then it's going to come back. At some point, you're going to be like, yeah, I really want to get back to modeling. I really want to work on that kit I was on. And you just jump right back into it. So I guess that's kind of an interesting way of answering that question. But if you're not motivated, just take a little break, and it'll come back to you soon. All right, next question here. What is the worst kit, i.e. the most troublesome kit, you have ever built? That's a tough one. But you know what? I started a few years ago. I started up on a Dragon 135 scale Sexton 2. And that was my first Dragon kit. And excuse me here, but it was kind of a pain in the ass. I never finished it. The fit was just really bad. And I haven't actually jumped into another dragon kit yet. So if you guys have success with dragon kits, let me know. But that Sexton 2 was not very fun. Oh well. All right. Aaron Sutton asks, what are some of your go-to reference sources, books, websites, etc.? I'm just getting started into scale modeling, and I'm not sure where to start. Very good question. One place that I think is pretty underrated, and I don't see a lot of scale modelers talking about it, Pinterest, the Pinterest app. And I think there's a lot of like misnomers about Pinterest, that it's kind of just like for wedding planning and home decor inspo and stuff. It's a girly tool, but Pinterest is great, and it is great for that wedding stuff too. So, but no, Pinterest is awesome. There are a ton of super high quality reference photos on there, and I use Pinterest a lot when I'm looking for reference images. I have a Pinterest account. If you go to the link in my bio on Instagram, or I think I have it linked on the YouTube channel homepage as well. I have my own SpruesNBrews SpruesNBrews Pinterest that you guys can check out, where you can see all of my saved pins. I have done a lot of work cataloging those into sections for subject matter. So check that out when you get a chance. But if you aren't on Pinterest and you're a scale modeler, get on there and start saving stuff. It's an awesome rainy day thing. And if you're just sitting on the couch trying to kill some time, open up the app and just save some photos. You never know when they're going to come in handy. Otherwise, Scalemates.com, great reference for modeling specific stuff. If you're ever like thinking about buying a kit and you want to look at the instructions first, you can pop on there, search pretty much any kit ever, and you can get a PDF of the instructions. So that is super helpful. Other reference material, just, Google, YouTube, the works. I've got a collection of books back here, but I will save that for another video. We'll go into depth into some of my reference books. But yeah, check out Pinterest. All right, another good question here. Just getting back into the hobby after a couple years break. I have a question for you. I'm thinking about posting build videos on my channel, and I was wondering, how much time a week do you spend creating your content? Do you have to work around a full-time job? Do you do a little work every night, or mostly on the weekends? Do you try and keep a schedule or anything? Just wondering. Very good question. That's the thing. This is a lot of work. This takes a lot of time. Obviously, producing content for YouTube and for Instagram and all that jazz takes a lot of time in itself. Scale modeling takes a lot of time. And yes, I do have a full-time job. That is probably my biggest amount of time. So yeah, I try and fit in modeling wherever I can. Mostly after work. I work a regular 9 to 5, 8 to 5 job. So when I get home, I try and do that. Post-pandemic, it's been handy because I do a lot of work from home. So when I sign off for the day, I can hop right into this and get working right away, which is handy. But it is a struggle to balance actual modeling time and filming time. My recommendation would be, if you want to get into posting content, start with Instagram. Just start with still images, or Facebook, or whatever, just still media you want to post, or social media you want to post still images on. That's quite a bit quicker, but it still takes time to edit the photos and get them up and all that jazz. And if you like that and you start to build a bit of a following, then maybe make the jump to YouTube. I think it can be a little frustrating if you start YouTube too early and you don't see yourself getting a lot of followers, or subscribers rather. So I'd recommend starting on Instagram or Facebook, build a bit of a base, and then if you feel like you have some time to jump into filming and editing and posting stuff on YouTube, which takes a ton of time. It probably takes me 4 or 5 hours a pop to film, edit, do the sound, do, post-production, overlay videos, all that jazz, B-roll, hours and hours to do this stuff, each one of these videos. So you're welcome. Just kidding. But yeah, start with Instagram, start small. And if you feel like you have some extra time, then maybe dive into some YouTube creation. But no, I don't really set a schedule for myself. I just try and, work when I have a chance. If I'm not out doing something with my wife or working, then I'm usually working at the bench here. So yeah, hope that answers your question. All right. Always love your videos for figures. Question: do you assembly line paint when you're doing figures, or do you treat them as individual models? Very good question. If I'm doing something for YouTube, I usually stick with one figure at a time, just so I can kind of walk through the whole process to share with you guys. But if I'm doing multiple figures at the same time, like say I'm painting or I want to paint 2 U.S. infantry figures, I usually do them as an assembly line. So I'll have my wet palette out and say I start with pants, right? I'll paint the pants on both figures. Or that's not a good example. So I'll do it by color, right? So if one guy's wearing a khaki jacket and one guy has khaki pants on, I'll paint the khaki on both figures, let that dry, and then move on to the next color. So I do it kind of assembly line style by color if I'm trying to knock out a bunch of figures at once. But if I'm really trying to focus and film something for you guys, I'll do one at a time. Ooh, this is a good one. Do I have any hobbies outside of plastic models and beer? Yeah, my first love, so to speak, was music. Here we go. Yeah, I played in a couple bands back in my school days, and I still enjoy, my guitar time. I'm on the spot here, so I'm not playing very well, but if I'm just trying to kick it and relax, my Martin here is one of my oldest buddies. So yeah, music was probably my first hobby love before I got into this whole world. Oh, I really like this question. Jake Trex asks, at what point did you start to feel like you were really happy with your finished products? Probably like my 5th or 6th model. I can see it right there in my cabinet behind the camera. It was a Panther D, a Tamiya Panther D, and I put 2 Alpine Miniatures figures in it, and it was one of the first German tricolor armor kits that I airbrushed, and I weathered the whole thing. I did pin washes. I did a lot of research on YouTube, and when I was finished, I was super proud of it. I'm still super proud of that kit. It's one kit that I have never gone back and touched up again. Actually, that's not true. I added a little bit more weathering at one point a couple years ago, but I love that kit. I absolutely love that kit. And it was the first one that I was like, I might actually be halfway decent at this. And it kind of pushed me to keep challenging myself. But again, like I said, that took probably 5 or 6 builds. The first ones before that were a little rocky. And, there's a learning curve with any hobby. You're going to make mistakes. But that was the first one that I got through and was like, you did a good job on this, Hank. Like, you didn't screw anything up too bad. But yeah, stick with it, and you'll have that feeling at some point. All right, we'll do a couple more here, and then we'll save the rest of them for a part 2 video. Oh, this is a good one. LST315 asks, what is your favorite thing about the hobby? My favorite thing about the hobby is you guys. That sounds like such a cliche, and I am sorry, but it's true. I love sharing my work with you guys. I love reading the comments, chatting with you all on Instagram, on DMs, over comments, etc. This scale modeling community is what got me engaged with scale modeling in the first place. When I picked up that first kit, like I mentioned way back in the beginning of this video, that Monogram or Revel Panzer IV, I popped on YouTube and I think I watched an Andy's Hobby Headquarters video on how to build up a Panzer IV. And YouTube and scale modeling for me kind of go hand in hand. I've been doing both since the very beginning here, watching folks, getting ideas and tips and tricks and talking to other people. And I think this online community of scale modelers is fantastic. It's what keeps me going and making more content for you guys. And it's just such a pleasure. So I know it's a bit of a cliche, but my favorite thing about the hobby is sharing my work with all of you and chatting and just, being inspired by what others are making. Ooh, on the flip side, Cooper Models asks, what is one part of the scale modeling community you really dislike? Could be a task, the community, etc. Some of you that I've chatted with might know this, but the folks that comment on my Luftwaffe build videos and say, oh, you missed a decal on the tail there, just get out of here. Go find another hill to die on. How's that? This one, surprise write-in. Is your house even cooler because your wife is so rad? I have a sneaking suspicion that Mrs. Brews wrote that one. And yes, my house is only cool because my wife is in it. So yeah, love you, honey. Kyle Likes Planes asks, where does the sun go when it gets cloudy? Age-old question, but obvious answer, Kyle. It is at the bench scale modeling. That is where the sun goes when it gets cloudy. Sprue Cutter Models 4554 asks, who is your favorite scale modeler you've met on social media, and why is it Sprue Cutter Models? You kind of answered your own question there, huh? I'm just kidding. Cheers, Matt. This is an important scale modeling question. Splodge561 says, what is the airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow? Well, important distinction there. Are we talking a European or an African swallow? If it is a European swallow, roughly 5-6 ounces, I believe the airspeed velocity is around 24 miles an hour, which is about as fast as I drive on the highway. So, good question. All right, one more and we'll wrap it up. Lucas Spitz asked, I'm pretty late, but I'm wondering who are some modelers you particularly respect and admire or take inspiration from? This list could go on forever and ever and ever. So today I will just start with the few that I got started with. We'll just give a little nod to the folks that really got me into this in the first place when I started this up in 2017 and I was searching for advice on YouTube, like I said. As I mentioned earlier, I think Andy's Hobby Headquarters was probably the first scale modeling channel that I watched. When I first dove back into this. Plasmo, also awesome. Shane Smith, fantastic stuff. Some really good American Armor stuff over on his channel. And Panzermeister, some really good like intro to weathering tutorials and stuff there that were all essential for me and my early motivation when I got going. Again, there are a ton of builders that I am super fond of in this scale modeling realm on the internet here. But those are probably the four that helped me the most back in the day when I got started. All right, so that's a few of your questions answered today. I know I couldn't get through all of them, but like I mentioned, I will make a second video going into these in more detail. If you didn't get your question answered today or you want to ask another question, leave me a question in the comments below and we'll use those for our next go round. We'll do another one of these. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you subscribe right here to SpruesNBrews Scale Modeling. Hit that like button wherever it lives down there. And we'll make another one of these down the road. But until next time, my friends, thank you. Be well. Happy building. Cheers.